Okay, everyone, I'm very excited here right now. I am, having the opportunity to interview one of my mentors, someone that's added a lot to my life, and get an opportunity to chat with him today. At first, it was, based on a book that I read, and I wanted to introduce all of you to some great information, an amazing person. And if, Dan, I mess up on any of this, please feel free to correct me. Someone that's written a dozen-plus books, working on some great projects now, and has, impacted millions of lives. So I'd like to introduce everybody to Mr. Dan Millman. So are you out there, Dan?
I am. Hello, everybody.
Well, perfect. I wanted to get to the point here today. We got a short bit of time. I appreciate you, being here on this call. And for those of you that don't know the impact that, Dan's books have had on my life, I was introduced to his book in 1999, but I don't know if any of this has ever happened to you guys before, where something sat on your bookshelf or sat there for 5-6 years. A woman said, "This is going to assist you," and I did not pick it up till 2006. And from the second I picked it up, I couldn't put it down. I was brushing my teeth, reading the book, The Way of the Peaceful Warrior. I was, driving in my car while I was reading it because I wanted to figure out what was going to happen because it related so much to my life. I started recommending it at the office. My whole staff started reading it, and I think I promoted about 100 books to people within that week. So I know for a fact that as you're listening to this right now, a lot of you are going to get impacted by some of this information. As I always say, you can learn something from everybody, but if you find somebody who's done something great in their life, and this gentleman has done lots of things great, listen to what they have to say. So, Dan, I got a bunch of questions for you, and I got a bunch of people that emailed me questions as well of things to ask you. I know that you're an author, you're an athlete, you work on amazing stuff in different areas of martial arts and different things. I just wanted a couple minutes just to kind of find out how you would describe, who is, Dan Millman, not just the author, not just the gymnast, not just the martial artist. How do you describe yourself, if you don't mind I ask?
No, that's fine. We all have certain things we identify with. I guess the best way I could do it, Michael, is to just explain that when I was a young man, I was an athlete, and I explored the idea of physical talent. Could I develop talent? Was it just inborn? Well, after years in the field of athletics and then coaching at Stanford University for 4 years, the gymnastics team there, I came to the conclusion, and I think that's been borne out by research, that talent, the ability to learn faster and easier and rise to higher levels, that's how I would define talent in any field. It seemed to me that it could be, maybe it was 20% innate, genetic, body types for certain sports. But it seemed like mostly we could develop the qualities. And I said, okay, if talent can be developed, what qualities make up physical talent? And I came up with a list of strength, flexibility, stamina, coordination, rhythm, timing, balance, and reflex speed. And I said, if I could train the team on that foundation of talent and develop more coordinated athletes, better balance, reflex speed, then they would learn the skills faster and easier. My theories did bear out in practice. The team went from the bottom of the conference at Stanford years ago, of course, to one of the top 3 teams in the nation in 3.5 years. And I coached the top U.S. Olympian. So I might still be coaching today, but, I went through some difficulties in my own life, and I realized that being able to do those skills of gymnastics, the handstands, the cartwheels, the somersaults, didn't help me much when I went out on a date. It didn't help me when I got married, when I had children, when I dealt with career and financial decisions. So that's when I started asking bigger questions. I started asking, what qualities can we develop, not to develop talent for sport necessarily, but talent for living, for the events, for the challenges we meet in everyday life. And I had to go through that little story to let you know how I've evolved from being that young athlete as depicted in the book and in the movie, as came out a few years ago.
Sure.
How I came from them to now. And that question about developing talent for living actually led me around the world studying with various mentors. It wasn't just the old man I called Socrates in the gas station. And it led to an approach to living I call the way of the peaceful warrior. And it's really more about living with a peaceful heart. We're all striving to do that. But the recognition there are times we need a warrior spirit. So that's what I mean by the term peaceful warrior. And that applies to all of us. So, again, I know maybe that's a long answer to your question.
No, that's a very good answer. I mean, so you would see yourself as someone that through all the things that you've went through, the challenges, the exciting things that have happened in your life, turning and developing into that peaceful warrior yourself.
Well, of course. I mean, I obviously practice what I preach, and people.
I love that about you.
Well, they say, have you mastered everything you teach in your books, Dan? And I go, no, I haven't. But I'm sincerely practicing, and I'm probably a good example. Not a perfect one, but again, like anybody, I'm in process and I'm practicing.
I love that. Well, you talk about, in your books, you talk about challenges, and it always comes up, the journey and the challenges, and I've read several of your books already, and I'm excited to, dig into a bunch more of those and start reading those as well. You talk about challenges and the journey in life. I have a lot of people listening to this that are going to be people that are entrepreneurs, they're athletes, they're people that are going for more in life, like you decided you were going to do many, many, many years ago. Do you have any, recommendations for anybody to get ready for the challenges, to accept the challenges, and what it's going to be? Because I believe your outlook on it is one that assisted me so much from the Journey of Socrates book, as well as The Way of the Peaceful Warrior, just accepting they're going to come and realize, the part of life. I'd love to just get your, outlook on challenges and the journey as a whole.
If I could develop an approach to personal and spiritual growth through the school of watching our favorite videos and eating a Haagen-Dazs, I would probably be a multi-gazillionaire. But actually, if we look back on our lives, we can see that daily life on planet Earth is a form of spiritual weightlifting to strengthen our spirits. And it's not that we have to go look for adversity. When I shattered my right thigh bone in that motorcycle crash, depicted pretty accurately in the film and certainly in the book, as I described it, that shook me up. I started asking bigger questions. It changed my life. I might not be here speaking with you right now if that hadn't happened. However, I do not recommend fractures as a method of personal growth. But the point is, whether it's a financial difficulty, whether it's something with health or an injury, whether it's a loss or disappointment, a loved one, changes that happen, we all, as you pointed out, Michael, so correctly, that we all face challenges. They rise and fall. We're supposed to. That's the point. Nobody has to pretend to like them, but that is how we develop. And I often relate the idea that, we've all had physical, emotional, and mental pain in our lives, but if we look back on that, we realize that every adversity has hidden gifts. Every one of us, having gone through those difficulties, is probably a bit stronger now, a little wiser, and I would say more compassionate, having an expanded sense of perspective about what's really important, having gone through those adversities. So people who've been in sports, that's a form of voluntary adversity. I mean, we volunteer to put ourselves up against life, self-doubt, challenges, ups and downs. People who've learned to play a musical instrument, voluntary adversity. People who have maintained a relationship for more than a couple of years, voluntary adversity. As nice as relationships and raising children can be, I've done both. Certainly, Joy and I have been married 35 years now, and I have grown teenage grandsons. So I've been through it. But the point is, it's wonderful, of course, but also it's challenging. And so is business. The area of business is a form of voluntary adversity. People have come up to me and said, Dan, why does life have to be so difficult? And I go, well, you want easy? I can help you with that. Just never get married or have children. Don't take on any responsibilities. Just live as easy as you can, and there you are. But you know what? I don't think we're here for easy. I see only the most courageous souls coming to this planet to learn. So I don't think we're here for easy. I think we're here certainly to make things easier if we can, not get in our own way. But a life that's totally easy is like, chickens. When somebody helps a little chick get out of the egg, it doesn't have to fight its way out. It often dies because it hasn't developed the strength to peck its way out of the shell. So to me, that's what creates the warrior. The way creates the warrior. The challenges we face. Everyone who's faced challenges knows what I'm talking about. They are stronger now. So that's what I would remind people. We don't have to pretend to like the difficulties and adversity and challenge, but when it comes, we can keep that thread of attention that we are going to get stronger, we are going to grow. That's why St. Augustine had this prayer. He said, Lord, I pray not for a lighter load, but for stronger shoulders. And that's what we're developing here in life.
Wow, I love how you use the word voluntary, because that's really what you're signing on for, whether, like you said, a marriage, a relationship, or business. You're signing on for that and let yourself know that this is going to come with it, but not to get, burdened by it all.
Well, it's very, very important, as we all appreciate, all I can do is remind people of what they already know at deeper level, but we tend to forget. But we all appreciate that the importance of taking responsibility for our lives, who we're with, what we're doing, where we live. We are not victims. As I remind people of that story in Way of the Peaceful Warrior, you probably recall, Michael, about this guy who, I was complaining to my old mentor, Socrates, about a professor who didn't like me and wasn't fair to me and all that, and feeling like a victim, a little self-pity there. And so Socrates said, you remind me of a guy I knew, years ago. We were at a construction site, and every time he would open his lunch, he'd go, oh, not another, tomato and cheese sandwich. I hate tomato and cheese sandwiches. Well, the next day, the guy opened his lunch. Oh, not tomato and cheese again. Well, this happened every single day. So finally, one of his workmates said, Mac, if you don't like, tomato and cheese sandwiches, why don't you ask your wife to make you something different? And he looked and said, what are you talking about, my wife? He said, I'm not married. I make my own sandwiches.
Wow.
So the point is, we make our own sandwiches. The choices we've made in the past have brought us to where we are now. It's not just fate or circumstance, though certainly that plays a role. And as we all know, we can't control what happens to us. We can control our response. And how we respond will determine our lives and the choices we make. So we need to recognize we're not a victim. We don't have to be with the person we're with. We don't have to be where we live or our current job. We make choices. And I'm not suggesting, realizing that, you can just leave the person you're with because you just had an argument. No. I'm saying recognize you are choosing to be with this person. You're not a victim. And we all need that reminder, and I do too now and then, to recognize our life is a choice and to follow through with it. So taking responsibility for our lives and for all that happens. I'd like to define the word faith, F-A-I-T-H. By the way, I should mention that I'm drawing upon material that's in one of my little books called The Laws of Spirit. This ageless woman sage, takes me through the mountains to teach me these lessons about spiritual and universal laws. One of them was the law of choices I talked about just a minute ago. And now I'm going to just touch upon the definition of faith, F-A-I-T-H. It's a different definition than many people have. They think it's a belief in God or higher power. That's fine. But I would say faith, real faith, is the courage to live as if everything that happens is for our highest good and learning.
Wow.
Everything's a teachable moment. If we're willing, you didn't hear the word belief in there.
Sure.
You just said that it's the courage to live as if everything that happens. Do I know that's true? I don't. But that's how I live because it's a different kind of life when I live that way rather than feeling like a victim and somebody punishing me and all that.
So it's a story you tell yourself that serves you.
Exactly.
And it's a way that you communicate with yourself in a way of viewing and your perception of the world that gives you a happier life than someone saying, oh, poor me, this happened to me, another, tomato and cheese sandwich. You're looking at it from a different perspective.
Yes.
Wow.
In fact, all this talk about positive thinking and changing our thoughts, I don't believe we have any control over the thoughts that pop into our mind, that random thoughts that come and go, nor emotions that pass, rise and pass. But we can work with our perceptual filters. In other words, cognitive therapy is not about changing our thoughts and controlling. We don't have a spam filter in our head for what thoughts pop into our mind. But what we can do is we can start to look at things from a different angle, change our perceptual filters. I mean, I knew a guy who you could just say to him, hi, have a nice day, and he'd say, what do you mean by that? He had sort of a paranoid perceptual filter. All these associations and beliefs and past garbage and baggage he's bringing with him, which is partly what Socrates meant by taking out the trash. So we can shift our filters, and that's what, as you say, the stories we tell ourselves. That's a resourceful story that I tell myself. I choose to look at my life that way, that everything that happens is for my highest good. So this is the kind of way we can perceive the world. Again, simply put, through rosier glasses. I had a friend named Jimmy Ortiz. Jimmy was my best friend in high school, and he was quite a character. And one day we were driving to the beach. We were in this, we were driving on the way in this convertible, on the way to the beach, and we drove up next to two young women, about our age, in a car going in the same direction. And of course, Jimmy, in his his inimitable style, he kind of turned to one of the girls and stuck his tongue way out and kind of gave her a wink. And naturally, the girls just kind of rolled their eyes and drove off at Jimmy's uncoolness. And Jimmy turned to me and smiled and said, "She loves me." That was just his way of looking at life. He chose to see everybody thinking he's great. And Jimmy's personality was outgoing because of that. And other people choose to look at life, people don't like me, and look at their behavior, how it reflects that. So life is theater. Life is theater. It's a game we play as if it matters. It's a form of theater. So we play however we'd like to. And that's a pretty good life skill, I think.
So you would say when somebody's having a challenge, one of the best ways to look at it is, from a big picture perspective, this is here to serve me. How can I see the better? Not just a positive thinking like, this is good. We can't be happy that this happened to us. But you would say that looking at it as all part of the journey, all part of the game, all part of the process. Like if someone's having a challenge, just what would that one line be or those one couple of words you'd have? I love the definition of faith you have, just to assist somebody with that little challenge that they were having that in the grand scheme of things seems huge right now, but in their life is just going to be tiny long term. What would you if you could just sum that up and very quickly for somebody, what would you diagnose for that or give them as
I wouldn't,
RX?
Michael, I wouldn't. I'll tell you why. I think each of us has to come up with our own keywords, our own way of communicating that. I respect people's process, so I'm not going to even get near kind of, a formula.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I just, I don't work that way. But nonetheless, how do I put it? Yes. From a conventional level, things can happen that really suck, that are lousy, that are tragic, that hurt. We grieve. That's, a young man said to me once, "Dan, my girlfriend of 10 years just left me for someone else out of the blue. What do I do about a broken heart?" And I said, "Oh, I can help you with that. You're hurt. That's what you do." I don't have any keywords or slogans for him to make him feel better or say, "Oh, this is just for my highest good." No, he's going to hurt. It's a wound. But wounds heal over time. We have to know that. They do. And sometimes they're a little stronger. A little scar tissue maybe, but they do heal over time. That knife-like grief will change to a sense of loving remembrance and more wisdom and perspective that you can survive this. So I think people have to understand it's not a matter of pretense or saying, "Let go and let God," or any of those kind of sayings. I'm just saying that from a conventional level, things happen that are not pleasant. Pain, injuries, loss. But from a transcendental level, we have to develop the skill to look at the bigger picture and recognize what we've been through, what we survived, and how we can turn this into strength. Sometimes climbing out of that dark hole can give us the strength to climb the mountain. So that's what I would say. And I'm sorry I can't give you anything.
No, that's what I was looking for, the bigger picture and looking at how this, handles in the bigger picture. A couple of the questions, just, turn the page a little bit, a couple things. I got a lot of clients that we work with, and I believe everybody's got a book inside themselves. It's just, they got a story of their life. We all have the hero's journey story within us. And my question is, if somebody had a story, had an idea, because every time I bring up the idea of writing a book, everybody's hands go up, me. Everybody wants it to be them. And my question is, how would somebody get started that wanted to write a book? I know you just get a pen and a paper. That just, sounds very conventional answer. But, if somebody wanted to just put their story down and not get too bogged down by all the details of everything, what would somebody do that, had a story and then that they wanted to share with the world that could impact millions of people like you've done over the years? What would they do just to get started? What would you recommend if you could?
I so appreciate that question because that's one of my missions in life. Let me say a couple things about that process of writing. There are many ways to write. You can sit down over a keyboard. You can talk using Dragon Speak. You can talk it out loud. You can record talking to a friend, telling them your story, and then have someone else transcribe it. So there's many ways to get something down that you'd like to express. In fact, let me just say, if people would like to come by my website, they can go to peacefulwarrior.com. That's peacefulwarrior.com. And they can click on Contact, and they can send our office a request, a simple email saying, "Please send me your writing information." And I have about 8 pages of useful reminders for people to encourage them to write and write their story. And that's the best answer, most complete I could give, because
Love it.
then people can actually get this information, because I do write to many aspiring authors. And I want to remind people, though, for now, whether or not they go to the website, that if you write 1 page a day, you've got 365-page manuscript at the end of 1 year. What a project that would be, just 1 page a day. And so, you know, it's fine to dream big, but start small, then connect the dots. Writing is not easy. We have to recognize every draft I write, the first draft usually turns out pretty bad, but it's rewriting. That's what makes the key. So every draft is important. The first one is that just creative pouring forth. It doesn't have to be that organized. The prose doesn't have to be perfect by any means. It doesn't even have to be spelled correctly. Just get it down. It's a muscular effort like laying bricks. And then after that, you leave it for a while. Then you come back and you start cleaning it up. That's the wonderful thing about the computer. Everybody has a story. It's your treasure. I recommend people start with their story. They write memoir. One of the few regrets I have in my life is that I didn't keep a journal. One of my daughters has kept a journal since she was 7 years old. Every day, if she ever writes a memoir, she's got so much fantastic material. And for her children or grandchildren, they'll be able to look to see what her life was like, what her perceptions were like. So I do recommend that many people start with writing your memoir, whether it's 10 pages or 1,000 pages. Write your memories, write your life, your perceptions, and that gives you the practice to sit down and write the great American novel or a short story or whatever you might like to express.
Wow. Yeah, I'm so with you, realizing everyone's got a story inside. And plus, you can have a better understanding of yourself. You get it written out of your head on paper. Because, you know, it's funny, you mentioned the story, and I read The Way of the Peaceful Warrior probably about 8 times. And you mentioned a story that I had to remember that I hadn't heard, the story again about the man at the construction site. And it's so interesting. If we actually write down what we're thinking, what we're going through, like your daughter, it's just so amazing how you can look back and, you know, draw, you know, perspective of your life and, you know, start noticing the patterns. And one last question for you, actually, 2 last questions that go together. I get emails all the time from clients, you know, your courses, your material has changed my life, you've done this, I'm, you know, 70 years old, I'm running a marathon now, you know, I've decided to, you know, get in the business, I'm making more money, I'm earning thousands of more dollars a day, hundreds of thousands of dollars more a year, I have more peace, like you saved my marriage. I get that stuff every day, every week, and at this point, I haven't had the impact you have of just, you know, millions of books and lots of people being, you know, out there sharing stories, and you've had years and years and years and years of writing. Could you share with me one simple story from, you know, somebody that read The Way of the Peaceful Warrior, maybe an email you got or, you know, a letter you got of something it did for somebody's life? Because I know at this point your other books and stuff, and I've, you know, read your sites, your blogs, awesome stuff with some of your other material, but as The Way of the Peaceful Warrior goes, could you share maybe one just moving thing that has happened in somebody's life that read that book, like myself, and I'll share mine later with the rest of you. But if you could just go ahead and just kind of share one of those with me, I would just love to hear that and just share that with the group as well.
Sure. Boy, that's a tough one for me. I'm a Pisces, and just picking one thing, yeah, as you can imagine, over the years, over 30 years, I've gotten quite a few
billions, I'd say.
letters, yeah. But I do remember just an incident that happened, because I don't actually have that in my filing cabinet. I haven't been asked that before, and I don't usually write those kinds of things. But I will tell you this. We were in Hawaii. We were there for a training, my wife and I, and we stopped in a service station. There was a woman in a VW van, and she had a little baby in her arms, and she seemed very nice. There was some vibe, but it was really nice, and I said hi, and because she was asking directions to someplace, and I knew the area, so I suggested where she could go. And I said, you know, this sounds very strange. I said, normally I don't ask strangers this, but I have a feeling. I said, have you ever read a book called Way of the Peaceful Warrior? I just had a feeling, you know. Maybe it was the VW van, you know. And she said, read it. She said, I'd be dead now if I hadn't read it.
Wow.
She said, I read that book. She said, this baby wouldn't be alive. And I just, like, wow. I was that you know, I just remember that incident. Yeah, did I read it? Yeah, I read it. The director of the movie, you know, the director of the Peaceful Warrior movie, he had a very dark time in his life. He was in prison. And when he was in prison, he was beaten almost beyond recognition. And someone gave him a book in prison to read. And he said the book not only changed his life, but probably saved it. And again, it was Way of the Peaceful Warrior. And so those are just 2 stories. So he had a real connection to the material, you know.
You got the right guy putting that movie together. Fantastic.
Well, yeah, he really had a personal feel for it. So, I never imagined when I wrote Way of the Peaceful Warrior, and again, I have written 14 books. Each one is quite different. The life you were born to live, or the laws of spirit, wisdom of the peaceful warrior. Everyone has a different purpose. By the way, the graphic novel's coming out in October.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and we are having such fun. It's different from the book or the movie. It's based on an original script I wrote, and it's just turning out really cool. I'm having a fantastic time with my illustrator.
Well, we're going to have to get our hands on that as well. I'm excited. When is that going to be out?
In October.
In October, perfect, right in time for my birthday.
Cool.
So, okay, cool. Well, Dan, I'm real respectful. I want to respect your time. I had one last question, just one last little statement here, and then I'm going to let you go. And I really appreciate you are one busy guy in between writing a book and just doing all sorts of speaking and different things around the world. I really appreciate you being here. And if I could just ask you, just if you know one, I'm sure you have thousands, and the Pisces thing will throw this again, but do you have one quote that a lot of people have a quote that moves them? I love the one at the beginning of, the journey of Socrates, about every journey has a secret destination, which the traveler is unaware. But is there a quote that you have that, you just one that just moves you, that you have in your head at all, or something that just, you've said to yourself over the years, or just something that's just impacted you, or one maybe that just impacts you now in your life that you just don't mind sharing with everybody here?
Actually, yes, I can. I can read one quote, and it's at the end of my book, The Journeys of Socrates. Mm-hmm. It would be a wonderful way, I think, to end. The Journeys of Socrates is the life story of my old mentor. People have asked me about him over the years. It's probably my best.
I love that book.
Yeah. And at the end of the book, Socrates said this. He said, "When I was young, I believed that life might unfold in an orderly way according to my hopes and expectations. But now I understand that the way winds like a river, always changing, ever onward, following God's gravity toward the great sea of being. My journeys reveal that the way itself creates the warrior, that in the fullness of time every path leads to peace and every choice to wisdom, and that life has always been and will always be arising in mystery."
Wow. I love that. I love that. And the reason I ask that is that just sometimes different things move us at different times, and I just wanted to get inside your brain today, find a little bit of how you think. I mean, you've been so successful in so many different areas, as an author, as an athlete, as a coach, as you have grandkids now, all sorts of stuff going on in your life. So I'm just real thankful for your time here today, and I know that you had a chance. I talked to your company, and you were able to autograph some books for us. Yeah, and I really appreciate you doing that. And for those of you, I just encourage you, don't do what I did. Don't wait 6 years to read this book when someone recommends it. Get inside this man's head, hear what he went through, hear the story. It's an amazing story about life, and it's got some great fictional aspects to it as well that will assist you in just your journey, whether it's your business, your personal life, or anything. You can go to our website and pick those up, and got an autographed copy we'll ship out to you within 24 hours, and I'm excited to get you to start reading that and start posting on Facebook and our blog, what you're gaining from this. So, Dan, I just want to thank you one more time for being here today, and just want to really thank you for your time. I know we went a couple minutes over, but I want to thank you for that, and I look forward to, working on some other stuff in the future with you as well.
It's been a pleasure, Michael. I wish you and your listeners all the best. Good job.
Thanks, Dan. Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.